Yeah, y'all pooped yourself. Yes, I know you did. But welcome, guys. Wanna know what I call this series? Spooky Scary Saturday. You guys may have heard that from Corey X Kitchen. Shout out. Hopefully he starts posting. He was the one that made me want to do this, like start YouTube and all that. His name is Corey X Kitchen. He's pretty lit. He does games, reacts to scary animations, and yeah. But he used to do it on Sundays. We go to school on Sunday. Who wants to watch some scary stuff on Sunday? Saturday, you can do it all night. So, welcome. Grab your chips, grab a drink, hydrated, and let's get into this. My mom disappeared.
I don't know what to do.
I didn't get to read it. My mom disappeared at a strange.
I don't know
ate
what
a
to
strange
do.
meat.
It all started 3 weeks ago. My mom disappeared. She was at home in the morning, nothing different. She hugged me, saying goodbye, wished me luck with school, and gave me a packed lunch. And when I got home that evening, she wasn't there. She didn't come back. So we called the police and all of the search was set up. The whole town came together and held a giant search party, lasting through the night, but there was no sign of her at all. She had just completely vanished. The weeks since were hell for both me and my dad. Rumors started spreading through town, and particularly around the school, that my mom had been murdered.
Oh my God.
Dad took things a lot worse than I did. He was a carpenter, so it wasn't unusual behavior for him to disappear into the garage for a long time, to work on a chair or table or something.
Okay.
Especially, it was what he always did when he was stressed.
Okay.
I figured that's just how he was dealing with the grief. We barely spoke over the next couple weeks. He was locked in there from sunrise to midnight. And we might bump into each other at one point, but he'd just say goodnight and went to bed.
Shady.
Sure, it was a bit weird, but I understood that he was going through a lot. But the longer he spent in there, the less I was sure he was doing woodwork. There were large bottles of bleach popping up in our bins, and Dad barely took any break.
Oh. Do you guys know what that means? Bleach? This stuff right here? Bleach, like, say you got blood on the floor and you want to clean it. Bleach cleans blood. Y'all thinking what I'm thinking? Yeah.
One night, I had waited for him to go to sleep, and I crept down to try to open the door. But it was locked tight, and Dad always had the key. But today, when I came home from school, he was in the kitchen. Freshly shaved, showered, had a rested face. He was totally different from what he'd been for the last couple of weeks. He was cooking. My dad used to love grilling, and his steaks were always amazingly delicious. So it was a nice change, since I fed myself only pot noodles and soup for a few weeks. He set down 2 of the biggest, bloodiest steaks I had ever seen in my life. But it looked kind of different. Not bad, but just different. Dad tucked into a steak straight away, and I did too. It was a bit tough to chew, but the seasoning and flavors tasted just as good as the rest of the steaks were. We had finished pretty soon, and I was feeling full and satisfied. Then Dad said something I can't stop thinking about. I doubt they'll ever find her body.
No, brother. Oh. Oh. Let's just watch this.
His voice didn't sound sad or depressed. I didn't say anything, just stared at him. Hearing what he said sent shivers down my spine. Then, I thought of the steaks. The late nights in the garage, hundreds of bleach bottles, and my dad's weird behavior. Did he feed me her body? Or am I just overthinking it? What do I do? When I was 16,
No.
my parents,
Nope.
brother, and I were living in an
Okay.
apartment on the 4th floor.
Get out of
Every
here.
night, we heard crazy laughing outside of our house. At first, we just thought it could have been a neighbor taking care of a sick person, so we didn't worry about it. Then one night, I heard laughing again. It was 11 p.m., and everyone in my house was sleeping. I got out of bed and looked out the window, and I saw nothing. And as soon as I looked out the window, the laughing stopped. It was kind of weird, but anyway, I just went back into bed and slept. After that, I had to use the bathroom at 4:30 a.m. The bathroom was downstairs in the hall, and the bathroom window was facing a big field of grass and a parking lot. After I finished using the bathroom and washed my hands, I heard that crazy loud laugh again for about a whole 30 seconds. It sounded like this person didn't even get tired. He seemed that he needed to catch his breath from this loud and long laughing. I proceeded to look out the window again, and then I saw a group of about 5 dogs going crazy around something. And when the dogs moved, I absolutely felt fear. There was something, another dog. I think it was a dog. It had a dog body and paws, but not a dog face. It had a human face, and it was staring at me. It looked at me for a minute and then started to slowly smile, and then laughed again, and that was the same voice that I've heard constantly. I ran to my room, but I couldn't go back to sleep. The next morning, I told my parents and brother what had happened, and they thought I had a nightmare. I said that I swear it wasn't a nightmare, but they didn't believe me. They just laughed and ignored it. Everything felt real. I know it was 100% real. But the next few days went by, and I didn't hear anything. And one day, it was getting quite dark outside. I did end up getting a cold from swimming, so my parents and brother went out grocery shopping without me. It was 9 p.m., and I took my dog for a walk for a little while. There was an abandoned house down the block, and my dog took off running to a bush suddenly. It was like something caught his attention. I ran after my dog, and literally, I had to crawl under a fence to go and get him. When I finished crawling under the fence, I ended up cutting my knee. But thankfully, I got my dog, and when I looked up, there that thing was. That dog with a human face.
Sock it in his face. What
We
do you
were face to face.
grab it and just
It had glowing green eyes, and it had definitely human face features,
Just kidding,
and the
don't do
head
that.
was bald. I screamed, and it just started that scary laughing again. I ran away with my dog and came back home. Well, I'm 18 now, and my family and I moved away to another place. I don't know what the heck that thing was, and why I've seen it twice. But I'm just glad that I don't see it anymore.
Really? You gonna do us like that? Someone tried to break into my house several times.
I recently moved out to attend university in a different town, so I rented a flat where I live alone. Every morning, I took my bicycle, which I keep in the basement of my building, and went to my lectures. Usually, the neighborhood is quiet, but one night around 1 o'clock a.m., my door phone rang. This was unusual, but I brushed it off as a mistake from someone who got drunk. It rang again, but I kept ignoring it. This happened at least 3 different times, so it began to annoy me. One day, I returned from my lecture and found a bus ticket placed on my door handle. This ticket was from a bus in my hometown, and it appeared to be mine, as the bus number on it was the bus that I frequently used. At this moment, I started to get concerned that someone was pranking me. That same night, I kept my front window a bit open to keep an eye on the entrance. I live on the 2nd floor, so it's too high for anyone to climb. I shut the lights and waited. And at that moment, the door phone rang again. This time, I checked through the window and there was a shadowy figure of a man. He waited for about 5 minutes and then left. I considered calling the police, but I had nothing to report besides a strange man ringing my door phone late at night, so I soon ignored it. But what happened some days after almost made me go crazy. It was around 3 a.m. and the door phone rang again. By this time, though,
right
I
there.
heard the front door shut.
Like.
Someone must have forgotten
No.
to lock it. So I assumed
No.
that the man was now inside the building.
Oh, shoot.
Terrified,
I hit my mic on accident.
Grabbed the biggest knife I had. Then I stood behind the front door and waited. The doorbell rang. I think my stomach dropped at that point.
Gotta put this on.
He rang again and then knocked strongly. I stayed frozen for an eternity until I couldn't hear anything.
Light on.
I was relieved
1, 2, and 3.
went to sleep after a while, which in hindsight was very
was it on this whole
stupid,
time?
as I should have made sure that the man had left the building. The following morning, as I was leaving for my lecture, I noticed some scratches near the front door's handle, as if someone had tried to mess with the lock. I immediately went to my landlord, who lives right above me, and explained everything that had been going on. He reassured me that everything would be fine. So I went to get my bike, but as I walked towards the basement door, I noticed that the lock was broken. I finally understood. The man from last night must have hidden in there. I hadn't heard the front door shut again yesterday, so that must have meant that the man was still here. I ran upstairs again and told my landlord. He got angry, grabbed a bat, and went to check. All I could hear was struggling noises as my landlord beat that man senseless. We then called the police, who arrived a few moments later and arrested him. I still remember his face to this day, as he looked straight at me silently. It turned out that this man had been following me for days and was trying to rob my house. He had done the same thing to other people in the past. I don't know what happened to him afterwards, but I assume he is in prison. I am forever grateful to my landlord for being so brave.
Best kiss him now.
We replaced the locks on every door, so now I feel safer. Well, I would have forgotten about this if I didn't open my mailbox recently and find another bus ticket.
My name is Michael, and it happened 2 years ago.
Nope. Nope.
I had
Where's my
some
phone?
friends at the time.
Where is my
Let's
phone?
call them
Gotta put
Dan,
myself.
Sarah, and Hazel. We
Gotta put
decided to make our
myself.
little party
Gotta
of explorers,
look away.
exploring forests and abandoned structures and such.
Side boy win.
That day was our first exploration, an abandoned house just at the end of my neighborhood. We started walking toward that house and reached it soon.
My shoulders are right here.
People said that it was built in the 1940s. It had been owned by a man who abandoned it after moving to live in the nursing home, and the house has been left alone since then. We were outside for a while, and Dan says we should go inside.
Nope.
We decided to check
Back
out
up.
the well first, which was next to
These
the
can
house.
poke eyes out.
The well was stone and round, which looked exactly like the same thing as in the Ring movie.
Okay, whatever.
There was a piece of old wood board covering
I
the top.
got this, shoddy.
All of a sudden, Dan jumped up on the board like a maniac. Then his leg fell through the small opening. If he would have fallen in, we'd have been in big trouble. Luckily, he lifted his leg out of the opening and acted like nothing just happened. We went inside, and we could smell a very strong odor emitting from inside the house.
Fish.
It was very gross. But putting smells aside, we came across a bunch of weird things around the house. Clothes packed in a freezer, a fireplace with dolls inside, an upside-down table. It kind of looked like an art museum. Things started to get kind of eerie. Then we entered a bedroom this time, and the roof was almost caved in. Clothes with stains everywhere, and a black ooze was rolled down across the ceiling. I was going to puke at this point. And at that moment, we heard some distinct chewing sounds. We freaked out, so we didn't have any choice except we were going outside. But when we left the room, barely, we all froze. A man who wore a scruffy lime green shirt and old
Zombie,
gym shorts
okay.
stood in front of the front door. He seemed like that he didn't.
Hey, zombie, come on, tell me now.
He just stood there and glared at us with a fierce look. He slowly lifted his arm to show us. It looked like a lump of raw meat with the blood still dripping from it. That guy was chewing his arm. My legs were shaking. I wanted to cry at that time. He shouted, "Get the hell out of here," in a hoarse voice, and we ran away. I couldn't believe hell out of here in a hoarse voice, and we ran away. He shouted, "Get the hell out of here," in a hoarse voice, and we ran away. I couldn't believe what it was I saw. After that, I never met the same guy in my neighborhood. We haven't told our parents yet. And I'm still wondering, would he still be there if I visit that house again?
EVE Online is a vast universe.
Oh my god.
Alive.
Again?
No one cares. The creepiest clown on the street story animation.
This story happened in July
Let's
in the
get
year
it.
2016. We had the clown scandal in the U.S., and it was pretty crazy. The people would dress up in clown costumes and stalk people, and sometimes even do worse. My friend Miguel and I went to spend the night at our other friend's house, whose name is Milo. We showed up at his house around 3 p.m. We just watched movies and ate snacks, just regular teenager stuff. Milo's house was next to a park, so we would usually go back to our home pretty late and walk the track. After watching movies all day, we eventually got bored of it, so we decided to go to the park and walk around for a bit.
What it is, guys.
When we got to the park, the time was exactly 2:36 a.m. At first, we just walked around, talking about girls at our school and other stuff. What
is that? What is that? My guy looking like a whole Tootsie Roll, pretty princess, Lady Pegasus up in here. Looking astronaut. Beach booty hole face. I said beach and astronaut.
Stuff.
Just,
After we rounded a corner around the park bathrooms, that's when we saw him. There was a man in a black and white clown costume with no mask on, standing by the swings. He was looking at us with his head slightly tilted over to his right side.
Why does it make that noise?
I mentioned that he had no mask, so we could clearly see his face. The man had a really dirty face with long, black, greasy hair. And he had a creepy smile on his face. His smile was almost stretched cheek to cheek. Even though he was pretty far from us, we could still see that he was staring right at us. We got nervous and scared, so we agreed to run back to Milo's house, since we were on the side of the park. We started the countdown in a whisper. 3, 2, 1. And then we started running as fast as we could back to the house. After running for a minute, we made it running as fast as we could back to the house.
This one looks like he's eating a winner, and this one looks like he's taking. This one looks like he's eating winner. Right. This one looks like it's in his butt.
House.
Ouch, 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 ouch.
After running for a minute, we made it to Milo's street and started running again toward his house in the middle of the road. When we made it to his house, we turned around to look down the street. And to our horror,
Squeaky.
We saw the man in the clown costume standing at the end of the road, only illuminated by a streetlight. He wasn't running or walking towards us. He just stood there. However, we were all sure that he followed us. And down in his hand, we were able to see that he was holding a long, sharp kitchen knife. We pounded the front door, ran inside Milo's house, and went into his living room. Milo asked what was going on, so we explained Milo's house and went.
Look at this. Oh my God, let's talk about some.
We pounded the front door, ran inside Milo's house, and went into his living room.
I made that totally accurate
Milo
battle
asked what was
simulator
going on.
sound.
Ran inside Milo's house and went into his living room.
Awesome.
Milo asked what was going on, so we explained everything that just happened. He has one of those doorbells with a camera in it, so we sat in silence watching the monitor on the wall. We then saw the man walking down the street looking left and right at each of the houses, probably checking to see if we were hiding. That clown guy finally stood just in front of Milo's house. We all got shocked, but we tried not to scream at all. And all of a sudden, he was looking through that camera lens of the doorbell. That was the creepiest moment I've ever had before.
Shoot the freaking
Luckily,
door.
he
Just shoot
kept
through the
walking
doors.
down
Blah,
the
blah,
street,
blah,
and
blah,
we
blah,
never
blah.
saw him again. And we've never spoke to anyone about this story. And to this day, I wonder what could have happened if we didn't decide to run to Milo's house when we did.
My town. Hope you guys enjoyed that video. I will make another one. Don't worry. The next one will be, obviously, this one all the way to the end. A creepy guy asked me if we can have children. I'm done. I'm gonna go take a fat poop. I'll be back. Peace. Hope you guys enjoyed. Subscribe.